Are you looking for an inspiring listen? Something to motivate you? You've come to the right place. Welcome to Women of the Northwest, where we have conversations with ordinary women leading extraordinary lives. Motivating, inspiring, compelling. Hello, listeners. I am here with Nikesha Womble. We're going to talk about CASA. And if you don't know what that is, you're in for a fun talk, a fun listen. Welcome, Nikesha.
Hey, Jan. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So, CASA, what's that even stand for?
All right, CASA. So we are part of a national model. The acronym CASA stands for Court-Appointed Special Advocates. And we are state-mandated programs who train and recruit community volunteers to walk alongside children who are experiencing foster care. And so primary parts of our mission include helping these children find permanency in a safe home, if possible, to safely reunify with their families who, may be experiencing, addiction or domestic violence, mental health crises. But if that can't happen, within a reasonable amount of time, then we help the court to make decisions to find them their forever home in a safe place, ideally, in less than several years, which sadly is kind of the state of our foster care system. And then more especially, we're the only part of the child welfare system who can appoint one volunteer to one child at a time. So many kids who experience foster care will report having several caseworkers or, maybe different judges, maybe being bounced around to different homes. And so it gives a consistent adult in their life to get to know them, to know their likes, their dislikes, to help them, to advocate for them. And so, very often these relationships that our volunteers establish will last even after a child finds a home or even ages out. We have volunteers who have went to weddings and, college graduations. And so it's a real special treat, and privilege to get to do that.
And so you work with the foster parents as well? And
yeah, so because we have a state statute, we are really positioned uniquely compared to other parties. So the people that a CASA volunteer will work with includes a range of individuals. So that'll be the child's, teachers, potentially doctors, pediatricians, their caseworkers. Kids in Oregon all are appointed their own attorney. So we'll work with the children's attorney to make sure their needs are being met. And then that also includes the child's resource or foster family, their biological family when it's safe and reasonable to have that contact. And then also, maybe extended family. So sometimes CASAs are the ones to find biological connections that have been missed by other people. Or maybe children have came from such a range of generational, poverty or dysfunction that they don't know about aunts or uncles or cousins that they might have. And so we have the privilege to be able to really reach out and contact anyone that might be within that child's sphere of influence.
What has been results that you've seen with some of the kids?
Oh man, I've seen so many over the years. So just a few highlights. We, many years ago, had a young little man who came into the system and he was deaf. He could not hear. So lots of behaviors, kind of hard to place because he was limited in communication and hadn't had consistent medical care. So, it really took some time to work with his team to get a diagnosis, to see, what benefits would help him, achieve educational goals or to make progress in life. And so we paired him with a group of foster dads who, one worked at an ASL school in a different state for a limited amount of time. So they were able to teach this little one sign language. Very quickly, he just began to communicate in so many ways. Then they took it upon themselves. So, the CASA worked with them and definitely encouraged them and, kind of did some missing piece work. But this was really that family that kind of makes all the difference. And so they reached out. They found other biological family members. They started hosting play dates. By the end of the case, they actually moved to a different state to be closer to a school for the deaf. And they went on to be able to fund and get the child to implants in his ears to where he'd be able to hear some sound.
Yeah.
That was a really special case to just see a child who by all means, the system perceived as not being able to overcome, but that right family, the right amount of love, made him an overcomer. And so those types of stories are really the heart of our cases because family is so important and love is so important. And a lot of times, consistency of those two things is the best determinant to break, those bondages or some of the outcomes we hear about foster kids, dropping out of school or ending up homeless or ending up addicted to drugs. That is a group of those youth, but that's not all of them, and thankfully being in the work that I'm in, I get to see the really happy side of foster care that sometimes we, don't get to talk about or share in.
That's kind of the role of the CASA. Do they kind of pick how often they're with their kids or what they do, or do you have a specific kind of groundwork?
Yeah, so we are pretty specific. We do trainings 2 to 3 times a year. So before a CASA gets a case or even comes on board, we go ahead and do what kind of a pre-interview with them to see what do they know about CASA? What are their experiences? Is this going to be safe for them to do? Often those of us that have been through trauma are kind of attracted to this work. Sometimes that's a great fit and a skill, but sometimes it's also not healthy for us. So we really want our volunteers to know, kind of what they're getting into and what the expectation is. They'll go through about 40 hours of training. And then at the end of training, we'll do an exit interview just to kind of square up and make sure, that what they've heard, makes sense to them, that they can digest it, and, that there are things that are hard. So, in a lot of states, there's the minimally sufficient law. So, parents may be able to get sober and healthy, but not every child will end up in a fabulous home with, a picket fence. And so we just want to be real with our volunteers who often come from very different walks of life about the type of cases that they could potentially see. And then we'll kind of ask them, we'll try to pair a CASA with a child to match, maybe skill sets they have. So if it's a child with an IEP or, who needs educational supports, if we have someone who has a past teaching experience, that might make sense. Someone who's drawn to teenagers or can bond with them, try to pair them with a teenager. For my program, we really try hard not to just give a CASA to give a CASA. We try to really match an adult with a child who's going to benefit that youth, be a good connection for them, and will really be able to advocate for their best interests. And so they have some say in that. So it's kind of an ongoing conversation. We usually only ask a CASA to take one case at a time. So that can be with one child or it can be a sibling group. So some CASAs might have one case, but they're advocating for 5 different children. Some CASAs will find that they're retired and they have more time. So maybe they'll have 2 cases at one time. And so we do have a lot of freedom in that. And so we can take all kinds of volunteers from different walks of life. And then we even have a set of volunteers who can help out at the office or help out with community events. For some people, most of our volunteers report that they spend about 10 hours a month with their CASA child. We do require for you to visit at least once every 30 days, but we really love when you visit more. We have some CASAs who visit weekly, some biweekly, some who will do a monthly home visit and then maybe do a school lunch or a treat or a visit type of thing.
Go to a school event or something.
Yeah, school events. Our CASAs love going to band dates. And anytime our kids are in sports, that's always a real joy to get to go see them do something that they love. And so, we one of the most special things about CASAs and for our program is that these kids aren't just a file or a case number.
Right.
They're real humans, they're individuals. And despite what they've been through, we know that doesn't define them. And so we push them forward and encourage them and let them know, like, you're your own person. These things don't define you. You can go on and accomplish really great things. And so we try to match the volunteers kind of with all of those things in mind.
What do the kids say about having CASAs?
Oh, we get a wide range of answers there. And, so our littlest kids, they love their CASAs. A lot of them kind of will look to their CASA as an aunt or uncle. A lot of our CASAs are retired, so they'll kind of be more of the grandparent role. And then I'll be honest, we have a lot of teenagers. So, whereas a child's attorney will advocate for what their client wants, we don't always agree with what the child may want for themselves. And so, they may want to be able to sleep on their friend's couch for 3 weeks, but we know that's not in their best interest. So sometimes with the teenagers, they'll be like, yeah, I don't really want a CASA, but I'm glad you're here. So they usually end up coming around, but it kind of gets interesting with the older kids.
Yeah, I bet. How many foster families are there in the county?
After the pandemic, we definitely saw a change in how many families was available or able to step up due to their own life circumstances. So we are at probably less than 10 families, I would say. We have one of our biggest challenges in giving each child their own volunteer is that we have so many kids placed outside of our county.
Oh.
And so we have a big chunk of children who are a couple hours away from us, which makes it hard geographically to give them a consistent adult. And so, anyone listening, if you've ever been interested in being a foster parent, now is definitely the time. Reach out to DHS, take the class. There's no commitment. You can take the class and think about it, but our kids really need these families. I love CASA and I love my volunteers, but I think the real heroes are the foster families, the ones that are there consoling in the middle of the night and they're putting pieces back together that's been broken and scattered. They're loving on these babies. And often they end up becoming the long-term resource too, not all the time, but often, their hearts just grow 3 times bigger and they just fall in love. And so, or, there'll be a real support for that bio family when that family's reunited. Many of our foster families will even be like extended family going forward, which is beautiful. And I think really best case scenario when we can build that social circle for these families and give them healthy relationships,
Yeah. Yeah. So anybody could try and volunteer, right?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So
volunteer.
Yeah, our classes are open to everybody. It's a good chance to be educated on kind of the issues that bring children into foster care in the first place. It's a good way to know more, here in Clatsop County, kind of what are kids experiencing? What are families experiencing? What type of demographics do we serve and why? Those are all really great things. To officially be sworn in, you do have to be 21 and then be able to complete the training. And then we do, of course, criminal checks, background checks. Being that you work with such a vulnerable population, we're pretty, stringent there about how we certify you. But if you do make it through the training and everything checks out and you think it's a good fit and we think it's a good fit, then you'll be sworn in by a circuit court judge and you'll take your oath. You'll become an official mandated reporter with a legal obligation to report suspected child abuse or neglect. And then you will be open to maybe taking your first case. And we have many volunteers that swear in and maybe want to take time before they get the first case. And then we have volunteers that kind of hit the ground running. So, we always encourage anyone that's interested, just take the training and then we can go from there. Because ultimately, we also want to educate the community too. So it's never a loss to us. We always love to see a big training class.
Yeah. And so the kids are infants through teenagers.
Yeah. So we do birth all the way through actually age 21. And here in Oregon, they can advocate to even keep their case open to the age of 23. So, many of our older youth, they'll access funds for college or scholarships. And then there's, a great benefit to them to keeping their case open. Obviously, our role changes as they get older, but we have a couple CASAs right now who have kids who are in college out of state and they maintain contact and they write home. And it's a beautiful way for that relationship to flourish in a different way. So, we really serve the whole gamut of children. I would say our greatest need for CASAs right now are probably the 1 to 5 years of age range. With the fentanyl crisis, we also see a large number of children that are drug affected, which that can make its presence known earlier or later. Sometimes things don't show until development. So, having volunteers to really visit and consistently be with these young ones who don't have a voice or can't advocate for themselves is really important. And so we, try to pair them as often as possible too.
Yeah. What brought you into this field?
So I was made for the field, I suppose. I was physically abused and neglected by my parents. And then I was sexually abused by my father and then trafficked by my father and mother for several years up until about the age of 13. And so I was in and out of the system. The court, would appoint people to come and see me in my home, but everyone was so afraid of my father that no one really ever came in to actually see if I was safe or not. As I got older, I started thinking about the difference someone could have made in my life if they would have known me or been able to advocate for me. And so I just started looking for a way to give back. I went into therapy and, really realized wow, generational trauma can have a lifelong impact. And it takes real work and guidance and grace to work to kind of get through that. And so I just wanted to do something with that experience. And I looked up volunteer roles and CASA was one of those. And so I started out as a volunteer. Then within a few weeks or months became office manager, program manager, and now I'm the director of the program. So, like I said, I was kind of made for this work. And one of my biggest privileges is, in this arena, there's most of the people that we work around are college educated or they come from a privileged background. It's a really special moment when I get to connect with a youth and be able to say, like, no, I get it.
Mhm.
And, I have a lot of tattoos. And so, right from the get go, I'm just more relatable and to see their defenses kind of come down and them to kind of breathe, like, like I don't have to pretend to be someone different in front of this person.
Yeah.
It's really special. And it's just such an honor to get to do that. So, yeah, I will probably be here for many years to come, hopefully.
We hope so too. Yeah, we hope so too. Okay, anything else to share?
If you are interested in Clatsop CASA or in volunteering, even if you're not in Clatsop County, you can visit the National CASA website. And then for our program, you can visit www.clatsopcasa.org or give our office a phone call at 503-338-6063. We're always training and we're always keeping a list of potential volunteers. So now is the perfect time to reach out.
Okay, I'll put links to that in the show notes.
Thanks, Jan.
Thanks, Nikesha. Thanks so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Maybe this is a season in your life when you have time on your hands and you're looking to make a difference. CASA just might be what you're looking for. Feel free to share this episode with a friend or family member. I look forward to being in your car, on your walk, or while you're working around the house. Hey, I'm always looking for new people to interview. If you think you have a story or would be a good fit, or if you know someone, shoot me a message on my website, jan-johnson.com. All right, till next time, see you later.